971. Call the office at 572-0383 or 572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
For years, families in the South have been forced to pay for dam dredging at the John Compton Dam, even though they don't receive a drop of water from it. That injustice ends when the United Workers' Party returns to office. We will remove the dam dredging fee for Southern residents, because you should never have to pay for a service you don't receive. Fairness, justice, respect for every St. Lucian, no matter where you live. Let's save our St. Lucia. Together, we will right the wrong.
For too long, St. Lucians have carried the weight of a tax that was only meant to last 2 years. The 2.5% levy has eaten into every paycheck, raised the cost of groceries, and made life harder for families already struggling. The United Workers' Party will remove it from day one. No more broken promises. That means more money in your pocket, lower prices at the store, and relief for every St. Lucia. Let's save our St. Lucia. Together, we will right that wrong.
It's now time for Meet the Government in Waiting, hosted by Mr. Leonard Spider Matood. Mr. Matood, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Yes, good morning, Andre, and thanks. I'm happy to be here once again, and thanks to all of you who are joining us this morning, whether on radio or via live stream. We're happy to have you, and today we are going to be discussing the obvious subject, general elections, which is just, 4 or 5 days away? Mm-hmm. You know, and so Monday is the big day. So we're going to be talking things related to politics and elections, naturally. And I want to start by, I always go back to the Sunday before. Sunday is usually the big day where all parties have their big events and so on. There was a little bit of a controversy about this last Sunday, in that the Labour Party came out making some allegations that the UWP agreed not to stage anything and they didn't stage anything and so on. I just want to explain, it is a situation where the Catholic Church is celebrating their Silver Jubilee, and, it will take place from morning till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As a matter of fact, many of the candidates of the United Workers' Party, including the leader, participated in the Catholic Church's activity. And then after the activity, we had an event at Lakai at Level Ground in Dennery from about 7 p.m. So that in no way interfered with the activities of the church. So, the claims that the SLP is making, like anything else as usual, just, trying to make political mileage out of everything, whether they have to lie in the process, they simply do so and so on. Because at the end of the day, there are many requests made of the church to the government, and they did not honor it, including the bishop asking the prime minister whether he would have November free of any election campaign and so on, and he told him he couldn't tell him. You understand what I'm saying? And so on. But that notwithstanding, I think that's little cheap politics, like anything else. There's a matter I want to deal with this morning that is very important. Before I go into the politics, I think that is important that we deal with it. I have dealt with it in other fora, but I think it's important I deal with it here. And that is, on the Sunday, I told you that the UWP had a massive rally at Level Ground in Lakai, Dennery. And, of course, like anything else, there was entertainment. One of the entertainers, while performing in song...
But is that local guy? A local guy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In song, said something to the effect that the Prime Minister is autistic. And, of course, that drew some outrage from the Helen Association for Persons with Autism and the Prime Minister, surprisingly. And of course, I fully appreciate the sentiments expressed by the President, Dr. Delia Samuel. And I want, as PRO of the United Workers' Party, to say as well that we do not condone any such act of making fun of, demeaning, ridiculing people with disabilities. We absolutely do not condone or endorse that kind of behavior. Unfortunately, it was done on our platform, and that does not reflect the sentiments of the United Workers' Party. As a matter of fact, if you go to our manifesto, you'll realize that there is, a section that deals with the disabled, and that is a more of a reflection of how we feel about the disabled. And let me just say too that you would not hear such comments coming from any United Workers' Party candidate or the leadership. And let me further say too that the United Workers' Party actually embraces all St. Lucians with a capital A and capital double L. And I say so because, Andre, what a lot of people do not know is that one of our candidates is on the autism spectrum. Okay, so I'm saying we're not just saying, we're giving lip service, we are demonstrating it. It's just like when it comes to youth, we are actually not saying the youth is the future tomorrow. Again, we have embraced the youth and give them a say at the table. So let me just go back to the issue and say that we certainly regret that occurred. And it's not something we thought of before, but going forward, we will ensure that is a stipulation made to artists who, because you see, with our speakers, and what you're going to speak of, sometimes they give you a script to speak, so we know what you're going to say. But with the artists, you don't always know, but we're going to let them know whatever you say, do not cross that line, I think that is one of the things we are going to ensure that we do from now on going forward. But I just want to give the assurance to Dr. Samuel, who said in her statement that she hopes that's not the sentiments of the United Workers' Party. I want to tell her it's absolutely not the sentiments of the United Workers' Party, and I understand her outrage and so on. However, when I listened to the Prime Minister, I couldn't help but say, what a hypocrite. Philip Pierre has proven himself to be two things in these last 4 years: a hypocrite and a liar. I mean, the man stood there and, condemned about, they call him autism, or people with disability, and as if he cares, But remember, Philip J. Pierre won the election. 13 of his candidates won. That is not a government that is scrunting to form a cabinet. You have 13 elected members, not to mention, you have the other, 15, the other 2 members who did not win the seat, that you could bring through the Senate. Philip J. Pierre personally handpicked Richard Frederick, the most despicable politician, if not human being on this island, and made him a member of his cabinet. And true to form, on more than one occasion, Richard Frederick has sat on his show on a Thursday and make demeaning remarks and ridicule people with disability. I remember on one occasion, Richard Frederick on his show referred to Dominic Fady as he looking like someone who has autism and dwarfism. Okay? And he has referred to people as being short, he has been, all that kind of thing. Ridiculing people, body shaming people. He made references to Laura Japet Noel, all kinds of things. The Prime Minister never once, not on one occasion, expressed a word of condemnation. Okay? He was deaf. But he wants to come out now to try to make political mileage of an unfortunate situation that took place that is clearly not reflective of the sentiments of the United Workers' Party. So once again, I want to say, Philip J. Pierre, all you did was expose how much of a hypocrite that you are. And by the way, while an artist, and you see, Andre, you may have a song, and the words of the song will say, the sky is yellow. All right? We know that is what you're going to say. But when you start to freestyle, we cannot anticipate exactly what it is you're going to say. Okay? Because you might say yellow represents UWP, whatever, and so on. That's very tough. So we did not know beforehand, or we could not have anticipated beforehand that the artist would have said so. But I am telling you, I can assure you that you would not hear that from any of the speakers, meaning the candidates on the United, because on the night it was strictly candidates except for Ezekiel and Gail, strictly candidates who spoke. You would not hear that from them. Okay? However,
So I want to commend you. I want to commend you.
Yeah.
I want to commend the party for at least you speak. You're the PRO for the party, and you're saying that you regret what happened. I'm just also suggesting that maybe you go a step further to have a little talk with that artist.
Well, definitely, and not just him, because the same way it happened, people get carried away because perhaps this is the largest crowd they performed before in their lives. Because we had people there, Andre, I could tell you that, And you tend to, even as speakers, we get carried away when we see a big crowd. When you go to church, when the preachers see a few people, they preach forever and that kind of thing. You get carried away and say things sometimes that you should not, but that is no excuse. And I sincerely apologize that even took place on our platform. But you see, but when you have an elected member who is a minister of government, a member of your cabinet, making those utterances over and over again, if you're genuinely against that kind of behavior, you should have condemned it a long time ago. Okay? And it's not even too late now for him to do so. But he said nothing, not a word about it. And I also figure, I also said, and I want to repeat it, that I'm hoping that the Helen Association for Persons with Autism is not being selective. Because I know of other organizations who lose their voice once the St. Lucia Labour Party is in office. They have nothing to say, they criticize nothing, they condemn nothing. But once the United Workers' Party is in office, or anything pertaining to the United Workers' Party to be condemned, they are up front. Quite rightly so, but I'm saying do not be selective about it. Okay? And so I am assuming that President Dr. Delia Samuel wasn't aware of the statements made by Richard Frederick, but I'm making her aware of it now, and hopefully she can also condemn a sitting, he's outgoing now, thank God, and never to return, but a recently sitting member of cabinet and parliament, that they condemn it as well. If only, and I don't think that would make a difference to the gentleman or change him, but if only to let St. Lucians know that is not condoned, that is not accepted across the board, irrespective who you are, So that having been said, let's go back to Sunday. So, massive crowd. People are arguing whether it outdid the boulevard and so on. I'm a very poor judge of crowds in terms of numbers and so on, so I wouldn't even hazard a guess. It looked like it was more than the boulevard to me. And so that augurs well for the United Workers' Party, knowing that UWP supporters, I will always say that, some of my supporters don't like me to say that, but UWP supporters tend to be very docile, very laid back, and do not come out for events. So when I saw that, I said, well, the base is mobilized, and that augurs well for election day. It means that they are going to come out and vote, and that is what will make the difference. So we had a manifesto presentation. But I will go into that a little more during the program. But let's talk about the theatrics of the night, Andre. There has been talk of late about fish and big fish and, who catching fish and who catching big fish and so on. And the Prime Minister promised that there are big fishes to come. And, people speculate, and that's what Philip Pierre does. He doesn't provide you with information sufficiently so that you can be enlightened. He leaves it up to speculation. So people started speculating, and people can be so mean, so cruel in their speculation sometimes. So, okay, who are the people that you can consider to be big fishes in the UWP that we have not heard from, we have not seen up to the time that he said what he said? Okay, the last administration, Alan Chastney was the leader. Gail Rigobert and Ezekiel were the deputies. And, Gail was working overseas. I'm a professor at the university. Gail wasn't around. Ezekiel has had his challenges, and I hope everything's going well for him. He had surgery and so on. He wasn't under hustings, that kind of thing. So, speculation was rife. What made matters worse was that John Paul Estefan, who was just the other day, a UWP vying to become a candidate for the UWP, is close friends with Ezekiel. So, he was unsuccessful, failed in his bid to become the candidate. Of course, he found refuge in the Labour Party, as they always do, all the rejects of the United Workers' Party. And I don't want to say we rejected him. He failed in his bid and he decided to go. But you can call it people who fail to get their way and who are disgruntled. You know, the SLP has become a bastion, a receptacle for them. So he found himself in the ranks of the SLP and they made him their candidate. So speculation is the two of them are close. Ezekiel is supporting, is endorsing, will be on platform with him and so on. Well, on Sunday, those so-called two big fishes appeared on the United Workers' Party platform. And Ezekiel spared no moment in endorsing Alan Chasney as the leader and endorsing Titus Prevail as not just the candidate for Babuno, but recommended him to be the representative for Babuno in no uncertain terms. My understanding is, but I can't be everywhere, but my understanding is during the week, Gail Rigobert did likewise endorsing Elisha Norbert as the candidate and to be the representative of Miku North. So much for all that speculation. People are still waiting. I mean, I don't know why people have not learned, you know. They're still waiting for Philip Pierre to deliver on his big fish. I mean, these guys just say anything that will serve their purposes. They make promises they know they cannot keep, and so on. But what has happened? Okay, you have seen Edmund Estefan, that is, gravitate towards the St. Lucia Labour Party, a former candidate who failed in his bid to be the candidate again. John Paul Estefan, a former prospective candidate who made a bid to become the candidate and failed in his bid, went over to the Labour Party. This gentleman, Dr. St. Rose, Elwin St. Rose, that is, made a bid in ancillary canneries, failed in his bid to become the candidate, and announced himself as an independent candidate, and then subsequently appeared on the Labour Party platform.
Well, he said on a program here with me that he wasn't treated rightly by the United Workers' Party.
And yeah, you know something, Andre? They tell you the rules, you agree to the rules, you even sign documents indicating that not only will you abide by the rule, but you'll support whoever wins, and that goes to all of them. I can tell you as part of the process. And you know, when you lose, all of a sudden, the rules are not good. The rules were against you. You know, it was not fair. And
I think he said that apparently the party, the United Workers' Party, had already selected Mr. Fede. And so, in other words, he was just going through a process that was really useless.
No, let's put it the way it is.
For him, anyway.
Dominic Fede had already selected himself. Because what Dominic Fede did, Dominic Fede behaved as if he did not hear the results of the election the day after he was in ancillary canneries. Okay? And what has been there for the last 4.5 years. Far more than the parliamentary representative. I'm telling you, I've heard UWP supporters make the comment, Dominic don't know he lose. The way he was there with the people, consistently working the seat and so on. You have to come to those same people to ask them to determine who is their candidate. What do you expect? Dominic set up himself nicely so that it was almost automatic. Okay? And to have contested against Dominic was almost like suicide because he had a big advantage over a gentleman who had spent the last umpteen years in the United States, not in touch, not in contact, has no connection, you know, and you come into, I mean, come on. The odds were against him, and that's what it is. Okay?
But I think he's saying, like, the party was not, like, honest with him to say that.
What is it the party told him that was not honest?
That,
Only thing the party did...
Dominic was already the
Dominic
chosen
was not
one.
already the chosen one. He was told that it will be an uphill battle for two reasons. One, Dominic is a deputy political leader. Okay? And number two, Dominic has been working the seat for ages. Okay? So, having been a representative, that is, he continued working the seat. So, you know, the thing about it, when you look at all of those individuals, they all have one thing in common. They are disgruntled people. Okay? So they are so disgruntled that they end up, you know, they found refuge in the St. Lucia Labour Party. So, if they're such big fishes, they would have been candidates of the United Workers' Party. I mean, it just stands to reason. That's logic. It's obvious. So, might I say to Philip here, those disgruntled individuals who do not respect and appreciate what democracy means, okay, they found themselves in the St. Lucia Labour Party. So Philip Pierre is touting that as, boy, The United Workers' Party is crumbling, the sky is falling because all the big fishes of the United Workers' Party come into Labour. I mean, what? You get a couple of sardine Sally again, not even fresh sardine Sally. And I say so, because those guys are not any big fishes in the party. If they would have been candidates. Number two, I say they are sardine Sally because they're all salty, having lost their bid to become candidates. They are salty. So they found refuge there. Okay? So when you talk about big fish and so on, there's no big fish coming. Okay? Let people stay out there fishing. Okay? Because, what you're talking about and calling big fish is those small fish we just use for bait. to bait the Labour Party. Tweet. So, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew, you can have a light moment. So we saw the endorsement by Gail and Ezekiel, which I respect them for. You see, at the end of the day, Andre, not because your day is done, you want to destroy everything that you left behind. Your legacy will be enhanced if you lend a hand in enhancing what you left behind. And I think I respect them for that. Another person I want to call out, I want to mention, is Dr. Farah Polius, who was the candidate last election, who made a bid for this election, was unsuccessful, but is the number one force behind Marcel Fulgence. These are people who understand what democracy is. Obviously it'll take 5 minutes to lick your wounds and so on and get on with it. If you're a real true party person, a team player, that's what you do. Now Estefan is out there now, making all kind of allegation, castigating the leadership of the party and so on. And I'm thinking, Estefan is doing more damage to himself than he's doing to anybody else.
I heard him, Mr. Montud. Would you care to share with us what's going on with him?
He's bitter. Estefan wants to remain in the fray because Estefan thinks it's his God-given right to be, and Estefan is afraid. Can I be blunt? Estefan is afraid that if he is not a candidate, that the party will not find use for him. I think that's what it is. Whereas the party has said that there is room for everyone. And I remember the first person I heard so was Sir John. He said to us while they're fighting for and jockeying for positions in the party, he looked at us and said, guys, come on. The government is not cabinet. Okay? Government is big. Okay? In my father's house, he quoted that. In my father's house are many mansions. There is room for everyone. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, just think of how big government is. There are statutory boards, all kinds of things. So if you are a person of value, okay, that you have something to offer, they will find a place for you. You know what I'm saying? You will get an opportunity to make your contribution. You don't have to be a candidate. You don't have to run elections, And so...
Would you also like to address the Andy Daniel situation?
Well, Andy Daniel... You see, the thing about it is, unfortunately, Andre, there are many people, despite how educated they are, what walks of life they come from, what positions they have held, there are people who are simply transactional. And anyone who is transactional has a price. Anyone who has a price can be bought. I say no more. Okay? And so, it is unfortunate that these guys destroy their very image in the way that they did. You don't prostitute yourself that way. You understand what I'm saying? And then in the end come and talk about the leadership. The same leadership you exalted and so on. Nothing has changed, there's nothing different, and now you want to condemn the leadership and talk about Alan Chasney, that the same Labour Party rhetoric that you refuted in the past, you in Labour Party camp saying it now. I mean, honestly, I think they're doing more destruction to themselves than anything else. And so, the United Workers' Party is moving merrily along without them. As you can see, they have not deterred the massive turnout that we have had, as Richard Frederick would tell you. What did he say? He used a word to describe the size of the crowd that they had in the cinema car park. Magnanimous. Richard said there was a magnanimous crowd. Now, I can stop laughing at that because Richard is a man who ridicules people when they make grammatical errors or they misuse a word. Okay? And here is he, who thinks he knows so much English, using a word totally out of context, I just tell Richard, look, man, I know magnanimous sounds big to you. Okay? It's a big word to you, but it does not mean big. You know what I'm saying? Just say we had a big crowd, like I just did. You know what I'm saying? And
well,
so
maybe he meant it, the magnanimous, because magnanimous is like friendly sort of thing.
He's talking about the size of the crowd.
So maybe that's what he meant.
You're a nice
the crowd
guy,
was friendly to
You're a nice guy, Andre, but he definitely was talking about the size of the crowd. You know, I mean, come on. You know.
But let me ask you a question, Mr. Montour. I don't know if you want to answer that. Do you think that there's some constituencies that the United Workers' Party is a little iffy about in terms of the win on Monday?
Well, I'm PR of the party, and when I'm on platform, I tell you we'll win all 17 seats, but we know that's not going to happen. And so, which means, if I say so, it means that there are seats that we are concerned about, you know. But I'm satisfied by my own personal assessment, being someone who has gone around, that we are going to form the government. In other words, we're going to get the majority of the seats. I do not want to, if I speak into privately, I'll tell you the seats that I think we're going to win. But, you know, I don't want to discourage any of our candidates, and I don't want any of our candidates to take it personal that, you know, I'm calling for their loss ahead of time and so on. I'm hoping that they all will do very well. And, you know, but I have my own assessment as to what the outcome will be. I think it will be a positive outcome for the UWP, but I don't see 17 seats. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just one person, but I met a few people who actually came from overseas to vote.
Right.
Now, that says a lot, Mr. Montour, in terms of how people take that so seriously.
Yes.
Because plane tickets are very expensive these days.
Yeah, and what I was told is that the price of tickets to St. Lucia went up because I think these people follow trends. So if a lot of people are booking now, they jack up the price.
Yep.
Yeah, so it is. And you see, and that is why you have to take people's votes seriously, because that's a major sacrifice. People take time off from work and all of that, and pay so much money to come down here just to vote. Some of them are voting and leaving same day, you know. You know, there are a lot of people I know who are leaving the same day. You know, and so we have to take that seriously and so on.
But, you know, as you say about taking it seriously, Mr. Montour, I want to, you know, zoom in on the politicians themselves. Because, I mean, if a vote is so important, right, why do a lot of politicians now seem to take it so lightly in terms of how they treat people? You know, especially your own people, you take certain decisions. When I say your own people, I'm talking about both camps, right? When you take certain decisions that clearly alienate people, clearly affect people's bottom line, things like that, right? I think politicians should really think about that seriously before they take those decisions.
Okay, but let me just say something. I would not have said so if my name was on the ballot paper for Monday. But let me just say something. People teach people how to treat them.
Say that again, people.
You teach people how to treat you. Okay? By that, I mean, Andre, if you tolerate nonsense from me, I'll do nonsense with you. People have to understand the power that they have when it comes to politicians. We just accept any and everything from politicians. If we all, now the thing about it, I spy that just one person thinks, go to hell, because you're going to be bothered about me. My one vote may count, but if you have the rest of the people not saying anything, silent means consent and so on. But if we all come together, you know, politicians listen, one thing they understand very well is numbers. So one guy want to get on and on, good guy. But the people come together on a cause. And that's why I say, when we see something going wrong, at times you even have to forget parties and affiliation. You know, yes, you're loyal to your party, but your country has to come first. So if it is an egregious decision that is being taken by your party, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave your party or stop supporting your party, you know. But you have to join the effort in pulling them up on that will affect the country.
But here's the problem, Mr. Montour. When you do that, people see, and especially if you have the ruling party, they see it as a threat. Sorry, and they look. People say, "Hey,
right.
You know, this is a small country. People recognize people's faces and things like that."
Yeah.
So some individuals are reluctant to come out.
That is because only those who are against you stand against you. So it means if I stand, I'm against you.
Right, exactly.
But if we all make it a convention in St. Lucia that we stand against wrong, Andre, you're not supposed to be wearing blue today because that tells me I'm wearing my yellow. But you're not supposed to wear blue because it tells me, you know, because there is a politician who has that color. Okay, but I can wear my yellow, though there's a party with that color. The point I'm making to you is, if everyone else, whether you are in red or yellow, do not understand, that's a violation of your fundamental right to wear what you want. You understand? And they stand up against it. It's not spider, it's about the principle. You understand what I'm saying? You should not condone that or accept that from me or anybody else, even if you're on the same side as I am, And that is where people will begin to draw the line. People will be more judicious in the decisions that they make and, how they treat people. You understand? And
but sometimes, Mr. Montu, depending on who's speaking, the incumbent would just dismiss it.
Yeah.
And especially if it's coming from the opposition.
That's true. And that is why I keep calling on institutions and prominent citizens to speak up, Andre. If there is an issue about media, I may not be qualified to speak. But people like yourself, Timothy, Rick, and so on, you all are the ones who have to be in the forefront. So if you all are not speaking, who do not even understand what's going on, you think I will take the lead? You all have to take the lead, and I will support you. You understand what I'm saying? And that is what we don't understand. And you have some experts, so-called experts and professionals in St. Lucia. If they take a position, is an outright partisan, narrow partisan position, not a nationalistic position. And, or else they keep quiet. Now, case in point, we had a statement made by Mikey Pilgrim during the week. And he came out to endorse a candidate, as he seemed to always do every election now, because last election he endorsed Stephenson King, let's not forget that. And he endorsed the St. Lucia Labour Party because he was on their platform. Mikey has a right, if he's not satisfied or the people he supported didn't meet his expectation, he has a right to change his position and to advance, the cause of someone else and so on, which he did. That is not what I'm talking about. But let's look at Mikey Pilgrim. I mean, you can compare me with Mikey Pilgrim. Mikey Pilgrim is a far more accomplished person. Mikey Pilgrim was Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Mikey Pilgrim,
acting.
Interim, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but he served for, I think it was 90 days or something like that. That's the pinnacle of politics. Not many of us can say we have reached there. Okay? So that is an accomplishment. So when I say he's accomplished, I mean he's Dr. Michael Pilgrim and so on. Academically, politically, he was in politics, politically, business-wise, Michael is a wealthy man. Okay? And on top of that, you can say all of that about him. Whether a young man still have a future ahead of him, he had to be cautious and all of that kind of thing. Mikey is advanced in age. What is Mikey Pilgrim afraid of? And why is there anything that Mikey Pilgrim is afraid of?
So what gives you the impression that he's afraid?
Let me tell you. Mikey came out and told us, okay, first of all, it was established that he was clear that he is endorsing Stanley Felix, and he gave you the reasons why. And he came out and he told you what a representative is not supposed to be. Not supposed to be arrogant, you're not supposed to be a thief.
And he was very, very stern on corruption.
Criminal, corruption, and all of those things. He said all of that. The man said all of that. The only thing he did not say was Richard Frederick. When everybody knew you're talking about Richard Frederick. The man described Richard Frederick. Okay? He does not want Richard Frederick to ever be in Parliament again. Okay? But he's not said so directly. The way he spoke, because of what we know, we were able to surmise and to deduce that it was Richard Frederick he was talking about. So why? And that person, that individual, why? Why the indirect references? Why not come out and say what you're saying? Okay? Mikey Pilgrim was the chairman of the National Housing Corporation, which is a statutory body under Ministry of Housing, and Richard Frederick was Minister of Housing. Michael Pilgrim did not complete the term as chairman. Okay? Why? He could have told us. So what we don't need to know. We are St. Lucians. It is a national body that you're sitting on. We should know the reasons why. You didn't tell us. He doesn't have to, but he should. What is it that happened between Mikey Pilgrim and Richard Frederick? Okay? Between 2021 and now.
Do you think something had to have happened for him to feel that way?
Definitely. Because you know what Mikey said? What if St. Lucia Labour Party has 8 seats, United Workers' Party has 8 seats, and Richard Frederick wins his seat? He didn't say Richard Frederick. I'm saying Richard Frederick because that's who he was talking about. Okay? Can you imagine that individual becoming Prime Minister? But you know, Andre, that could have happened last election. That the two parties win 8 seats and Richard Frederick win a seat. Mikey didn't have a problem with that then. There's something Mikey knows about Richard today that he did not know then. I certainly knew everything then that I know now.
So let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying that you know who he was referring to,
Yeah.
What's the big deal about saying his name? What's the big deal?
Big deal is if a man like you, because let me just tell you what the big deal is. In the statement, if you listen to him, he said, asking us, ordinary citizens, especially those of cash risk, to be courageous, do not be intimidated, have no fear. Andre, let's be real. Mikey is in a better position than I am not to have fear. Let's be real, let's face it. Mikey Pilgrim is in a better position than I am not to have fear. But you're showing you have fear by avoiding the name. Well, you intimidated by Richard to the extent that you can't call his name? You know? It's people like that who have to take a stand. And it irks me when I see these things happen, you know. It is about time. Because you see, at the end of the day, a reason why many people who are evildoers in our society get away, because they know they can do it and none of us will have anything to say. Out of fear, out of mendicancy, because, you know, I want you to give me a little blind to come here and talk everything, so I ain't going to say anything about you, though I see you doing wrong. You know what I'm saying? We have to stand up and show character and principle when it comes to those things. I commend him for coming out to speak, as it is his right to do. I commend him for that. But he did not go far enough. Go further. Because when people like you show that you are apprehensive and you have what I read to be fears or concerns, what do you leave for the average man now, depending on a little job, who have his family to feed and does not know where the breakfast is coming from tomorrow morning? What do you leave for them? You understand what I'm saying? And so, that's my criticism of the thing. I mean, Mike is free to endorse who he wants and so on. However, there's a part of his statement that I absolutely disagree with. Okay? Mikey is advocating that the two parties should not put up a candidate and let the two independents run. Well, the party he endorsed last election, I don't know where he stands right now, because I heard an interview of his recently and it sounded like he was endorsing Philippia. And I have to come back to that, because if he's endorsing Philippia, I have a serious problem with what he said in his statement. And so he's asking that the two parties allow the two individuals to duke it out. Well, we have already put forward a candidate. He was endorsed, he was nominated, and he is in the race. And he is the one we are advocating to the people of Castries Central who should be the representative. When you do so, there is no concern, no fear about what will the candidate for Castries Central do. Okay? You know that if Rush Clark wins, he will be part of Team Flabo. And Team Flabo has told you what they're going to do. Rush Clark himself has said what he's going to do. So that is clear. So to avoid the possibility, and when you put the two independents one against each other, you're giving Richard Frederick a 50-50 chance of winning. Okay? With Rush Clark in the race, let Richard Frederick and the other independent duke it out for the Labour votes. And that is the scare that Richard has. That's why he's running scared and making all kind of appeals and begging the Labour Party to put out statements disassociating themselves with Stanley Felix. You can't disassociate yourself with Stanley Felix, who has run 2 elections for you, who was a member of your party. Richard has never been a member of the SLP, but you want them to endorse you and disassociate with Richard. Well, Richard, guess what? There are two of you independents there. One independent Labour, that is Stanley Felix, and he is independent Labour, never mind what Labour say to you. And that is Labour's subtle, clandestine way of trying to get rid of Richard Frederick. Okay? And you know how I know that? Last election, the same Stanley Felix wanted to run. They caused him not to run to ensure that Richard wins. This election, the same Stanley Felix wants to run. They allow him to run, albeit as independent. Okay, because he could have run independent last election too. He didn't. But he's running independent this election. That's the subtle way. Because the Labour Party does not want Richard Frederick. That has been demonstrated.
How's that?
He has applied for membership, and they have refused his membership, even when he publicly made an appeal. At the time, he said it was 7 months. His application was on the desk. You know, it's taking too long and whatever. They have not. Because the Labour Party, just like the United Workers' Party, does not want Richard Frederick in the fold. The difference, however, is that I heard, and to be honest with you, that was very important to me as well, because I'm just voting for people, and at the end of the day, I don't know what you're going to do. Granted, I'm voting for UWP, and let's say, okay, they build a field wherever that they didn't talk about. That's not a big deal to me, you understand what I'm saying? But fundamental things that you're going to do, I need to know before I cast my vote. Alan Chastney, I heard him say, and I'm very happy and contented and comforted to have heard him say so, that there's no way that they will embrace Richard Frederick. Okay? That is important to me. Because the minute they do, I'm out of the United Workers' Party. I'm telling you that, you know. And so, when you talk about them, you know, leaving the two individuals there and so on, the situation existed last time, but it's different now because this time Stanley Felix is running. And I'm saying again, Stanley Felix is running with the tacit endorsement of the St. Lucia Labour Party, because that is their way of getting rid of Stanley. And what they're counting on is that with Richard's outrageous character, his personality, his notoriety, people will find Stanley to be more acceptable, which he is, than Richard Frederick, and their people will vote for Stanley Felix. And that is what's going to happen. That's why Richard is running scared. He knows his days are over. Okay? So
that's just speculation on your part, right? In terms of what the Labour parties may be thinking.
It's not mere speculation. It is an educated assumption based on logical indicators. You know? You like that, Andrew? You know? So...
Did your own survey?
Yeah.
Logical indicators.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, Mikey, I just want to say something to you. You talk about removing Rush and leaving the two guys because you feel it so important, so urgent that Richard Frederick not be in government. But Mikey, Richard Frederick as an independent can possibly win. As remote as that possibility is, it is possible that he can. But he did not have to be in cabinet, you know. A man who was not a member and has been refused membership of the Labour Party, Philip J. Pierre, the man you endorsed, handpicked him and made him a member of cabinet. Isn't that of concern to you? Having done that, and knowing what you know now of Richard Frederick, and he is not coming openly now to disassociate himself with Richard Frederick, you still endorsing that individual? You don't know, as long as Philip Pierre is there, we're under danger of Richard even being made a senator and put in our government, because we see, despite the fact that his party does not want Richard, how much he believes in Richard, and he does not spare any moment to tell you how proud he is of Richard and how supportive he is of Richard. He has done it several times on public platform. Okay? So, Mikey, examine yourself. You have not gone far enough. I am asking you to come out and make a second statement. This time, de-endorsing Philip Pierre, because he is as much a danger to us as Richard Frederick is to us, because he is responsible for Richard Frederick. Okay? And that is another reason why St. Lucians must not vote for the St. Lucia Labour Party. And that is why the St. Lucians must not trust Philip Pierre. Because if your judgment is so flawed that you'll embrace a man that your own party has condemned and called all kinds of names. Because everything Mikey said in his list of what a representative should not be, he got it from the Labour Party. Everything. Including, he must not be a criminal, he must not be associated with murder. All of that, Mikey got from the thing. Mikey was not talking about Rush. He was not talking about Stanley. He said the three candidates, he can only describe them as the good, the bad, and the gentle. Mikey, I can read through that. But you could have come out clear and say, Rush is the good, Richard is the bad, and Stanley is the gentle. I must admit, I know Stanley personally. He's a gentleman. You understand what I'm saying? Come out and say it clearly. So you think we have to guess who is the bad? Why can't you say who is the bad, who is the good, and who is the gentle? You know. So I'm saying people of St. Lucia who have stature, who are in a position, because the country has done a lot for you all, you know. Mikey, we made you prime minister, you know. Your education and everything like that, even if whether it was scholarship or not, your parents as St. Lucians, they would have had to, you know, St. Lucia provided the environment anyway for you to be who you are today. You owe it to us, man. Do better than that. I know you better than that. Okay? And another thing you didn't do, Mikey, you were on Kenson Kazimi's platform last election endorsing him. Are you proud of what he has turned out to be? Are you proud of what he's associated with? And if not, why haven't you come out and made a statement, just as you asked people of Grosile to vote for Kenson last election? If you're not satisfied with it, I'm sure you're not, because you spoke highly against corruption in your statement. Highly against corruption. You cannot be pleased with Kenson Kazimi, who's synonymous with corruption in politics today. Come out and say something about that too. That would make you the statesman that you're supposed to be. So, talking about the manifestos, the United Workers' Party presented a manifesto on Sunday. The St. Lucia Labour Party did theirs on Tuesday. Now, I listened to talk shows as well and so on, and I heard some comments, Andre, and I'll not say it loud, but I agree with them. Some people are saying that it's too late to present a manifesto a week before election. I heard someone say this morning that it should be done at least a month before, so that there can be debate between the two sides about their manifesto. Andre, that sounds very democratic to me. Because, Andre, a busy man like you, how much time do you have to go through two manifestos in the space of a few days? Let's be real. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I know some...
Unless I'm just watching pictures.
Yeah, you know. I know that most of the UWP's policies and plans, because I'm part of the process. But to tell you that I've had time to study the manifesto, with my agenda these days, you know, that's difficult, you know. So I think, you know what, while I'm talking about being democratic, I don't want to sound too dictatorial. But you know what I would do? Pass a law that once the date is announced for elections, and I would have a fixed date too. So if you know the date every year is on the 1st of December, I've given you a deadline by which you have to present your manifesto, by law. You understand what I'm saying? And I will also stipulate that there be debates, at least among the leaders of the main parties, prior to election. And at the constituency level, while it may be optional, but that we call for debates between candidates. Because, Andre, I'll come here this morning and I'll talk about all the great things I know about UWP. But, okay, how would you know if they didn't put it in the manifesto and whatever? How would you know how we feel about the disabled? If I never go on the platform and talk about it. Well, you have an opportunity in a debate. When I say you, through the media or the panelists, to ask questions that politicians are otherwise not very comfortable addressing. You understand? There are certain things I hear people saying, well, we have not heard anything about this, we have not heard anything about that. That will be an opportunity for them to be questioned on those issues. And so I think, you know, these are some serious things for the United Workers' Party to consider. And you know, there are a number of things they have put in place that they're going to do when in government. It's important to catch them while they're in opposition, you know, Andre. Because when in government, it's a different story. Some of those things have remained unresolved because it suits the party in office. You understand what I'm saying? Like the change of the date, the fixed date for election. It suits the incumbent. You understand what I'm saying? So they will never rush to do it. But if all unsundry, opposition, general public, everybody call for that to be done, it will be done. if only to please the voters. It will be done. So, manifesto, I was saying that, the two parties have put out their manifestos. I cannot speak on that of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I just browsed through it and so on. But in browsing through it, I noticed, they do what they do best. If they're not lying, they're stealing. I have some grand ideas, you know what I'm saying? I will look at those ideas, and then I do double check. Which manifesto am I reading? I say, I'm actually reading this SLP manifesto, straight out of the UWP book. They're going to build home porting for cruise ships in Beaufort. To me, we heard that somewhere before, Andre. To me, we heard that somewhere before. I'm getting a little confused. Directly stolen from the United Workers' Party. However, nobody has a monopoly on policies. You have just endorsed a policy of the plan of the United Workers' Party, and while you will not say it publicly, I'm saying it for you because you recognize that is a good policy to be implemented. Okay? It is sound. It's a pity you didn't recognize when you're in government that there were a number of them, like going ahead with the Hewan International Airport, which you have now in your manifesto that you will do, which we started, If you recognize that, that'll be good. The highways you're talking about doing now, if you had continued with what we had started, that will not even be a manifesto item. But at the end of the day, it is, now, mind you, by tomorrow you're going to hear, we stole the ideas, That's the Labour Party for you. Even if there's documented evidence that we've been talking those things for ages. Like Kenson Kazimi in the last election, the man took my plans for Grocery Wholesale, had the audacity to come and say, I stole his plans. Plans that I'd been speaking of years before in budget debates and in town hall meetings and so on. But mind you, it was his ideas, but he ain't remember none of them. I mean, talking about roads will be repaired and so on. The Grocery Credit Union, he was going to form a Grocery Credit Union. No, let us assume, Andre, it is not completed, but it is in this advanced stage. At least he was working towards it, because I am sympathetic to politicians, because, Andre, to make the program happen, I'm the minister, I say I want the program. It's not me. I have to depend on you. You took the whole year not doing it. Time passes and so on, there's a delay. But at least I can show evidence that I engage Andre, that was being done, so and so on, so much has been done and so on, to show evidence that you meant what you said, not a thing. The Grocery Waterfront development, we had images of it and everything, that he came and said that's his idea, not a thing. The Labon land rationalization, the Ramo land rationalization had actually begun, okay? And it didn't take much for it to have been completed, not a thing, okay? So, you talk about the options. Obviously, he couldn't implement it because he didn't understand what the plan was really, because it wasn't his plan. And that is why I say to people, even if the SLP adopts the United Workers' Party plan, we are the better party to implement it anyway, because you just steal someone's ideas, you don't have a clue what the idea really is about. So, I think that what I have seen from the United Workers' Party is a very impressive manifesto that addresses what I consider to be many or most of the salient areas of concern to St. Lucians, that will address many of the key problems. And by my estimation, Andre, it might be different for you, by my estimation, some of the key issues would be cost of living, healthcare, national security. When I say national security, I'm talking about crime. I'm talking about Dominica coming and attack us to take our land. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we attacking each other in St. Lucia and killing each other. Plus, that's not the only crime there is. Robberies, rape, and so on. I just heard of a case where a tourist in the middle of Castries, his bag was snatched and so on. This is the main industry of our country. We cannot afford to have situations like these. We have to curb those situations. And of course, the last few people who died, nobody talks about them. They don't count. It doesn't matter, But our murder rate is climbing all the time. Even though we do not acknowledge it and we do not pay attention to it, it is climbing all the time. It was only people who are directly affected who talk about it and who recognize the severity of it. But I just want to read what I have here from the United Workers' Party manifesto. And of course, I cannot in this program go through the entire manifesto, so I'll just take snippets and so on. But before they went into their plans and so on, they talk about some of the realities, because like anything else, quite apart from your plans, Andre, if someone were to come here and to decide who is a real talk show host, okay, so I just started the other day, made them have a following, whatever, has not made a name and so on, Andre well established. What the point I'm getting at is your past performance, your history, has something to do when carrying out an assessment of you in terms of whether or not you are the one who is favored. So, I know already you're not going to get a job, Andre. You know? So, you had a UWP government. You had a Labour government. You have to compare, you have to contrast, and that should help you choose, in addition to the plans they have going forward for the future. So let's just look at some of the things. You know, in 2016, 2021, there was the UWP. In 2021, 2025, there was the SLP. Management of COVID, Andre. It spanned both administrations. You had COVID on the UWP from February 2020. That's when we diagnosed our first patient, our first COVID victim. 2020 to July 2021, that's when UWP was swept out of office. During that time, there were 5,567 cases and 89 deaths. 89 sounds like a lot, but that was remarkable considering what was taking place around the world, even in more advanced countries like the United States, Italy, and those countries. 89 deaths. I would say now only 89 deaths with 5,500 cases. Come July, SLP is in office. From August 2021 to March 2022, less than a year. Okay? There were 24. Let me go back and say that again. 5,567 UWP. Okay? In over a year. Because February 22 to February 2021, February 2020 to February 2021 would have been a year. That went until July. Here we have August 2021 to March 2021. How many months is that, Andre? Okay. What, 6 months?
You said from August?
August 8 months?
August when?
August 2021 to March 2022.
About 8 months,
8 months. About 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
There were 24,648 cases. Okay? Almost 20,000 cases more in less than a year. And hear that. I said we had 89 deaths. During that time, we had 310 deaths. Okay? And that was as a direct result of how the situation was managed. So government is there to govern and manage. We manage the COVID pandemic far better than the Labour Party because we had far more regard, consideration for the lives of St. Lucians. Because here we were with Alan Shastney coming with the term protecting lives, and that's what he said, protecting lives and livelihood. Okay? They didn't give a hoot about lives. You remember? They violated all the protocols. They had demonstrations during COVID. They had public gatherings during COVID, all kinds of violations. And when they came in, they disregarded the protocols. And, for that matter, the people who were penalized for violating the protocols, they exonerated them. Okay? So, that is the people who are asking you to continue to be your government. Now, 310 people in the space of 8 months, whereas we had about a year and 4 months. All right, about a year and 4 months, and we only had 89 deaths. I mean, they don't care about lives. Look at what's happening with crime.
But how would you respond to the thought that the reason you had less deaths and cases during the United Workers' Party was because, it was sort of something novel it hadn't spread the way it did when the Labour Party came
and
to
the reason
office.
why it did not spread the way it did, because we took stringent measures, which infuriated a lot of solutions, by the way. Curfews, putting protocols in terms of distancing, and all of those things. And we went out of our way to get the vaccines. Now, I have my own thoughts on that, but we went out of our way to get the vaccines, which they made a big song and dance about, and so on. But it was all in an effort, a desperate effort to save lives in this country. Okay, they didn't have regard for human lives, and they told, you know what they said? That Chasney is a dictator. He locking up people in the house and all of those things. We implemented measures, the curfews, a sale of alcohol, and all of those things to protect lives. It was not popular, but it was the right thing. At the end of the day, as a politician, if you are genuine, your decisions should not always be about votes, about winning the next election. It has to be about what's best for your people and your country. And that is a direct example, a demonstration of what I'm talking about. So, Andre, when you think about it, these guys, that here demonstrates to us, a situation where, you can see the contrast between the two governments. Let me see, I've lost my... Let me just get back to the... Okay, yes. What I was talking about there right now. So, forget COVID now. The management of the cost of living. Remember, COVID will come under healthcare. So when it comes to healthcare, we know what the situation is with them. And forget what I will say. I'll tell you it's atrocious, but forget that. Consider what was said by the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association. They are the ones I'm quoting. The worst that it has ever been in our history. Management of the cost of living. When we were in office, Andre, to help ease the burden on St. Lucians, the VAT was reduced from 15% to 12.5%. So in other words, we removed 2.5% from the VAT. And we capped fuel at $13.95 per gallon, even though at times it was $100 and something a barrel of oil. At that time, we capped it at $13.95. On the contrary, when the Labour Party came into office, after COVID, they had all kinds of issues with inflation. They compounded our inflationary situation in St. Lucia by imposing 2.5% levy that they said was for health and safety. They lied to us in the process, imposed that levy, and further lied to us to tell us that it would only be for 2 years. It is more than 2 years now and it's still on our backs. However, there's hope, because come the general election, UW will form the government. They have promised us within 30 days that 2.5% levy will be gone. Again, bringing the price of goods and services back down.
Just a second, Mr. Mantut, sorry. Can you explain to us your reason why you're saying that the Prime Minister lied about the reason for imposing that,
because he went
that
to
levy?
The Parliament. He went to the Parliament and he said that the levy that he was imposing on us was to help take care of health and citizen security. Andre, while things were bad, we swallowed it. And you know why? You care about your health, you care about your security. We all do. And say, okay, fine, a big sacrifice, but we'll make it if it is to improve health and security. Only to find out later, when he admitted that was a requirement for him to secure a loan. I think it was with the Caribbean Development Bank. Okay? So he lied.
I still don't understand. So he lied about...
the reason why he was imposing the levy. It was a requirement
so are you
by
saying
the institution that he put some tax in place to generate revenue so that he can qualify for the loan.
So you're saying that the 2.5% is not being used for health and security?
Well, ask me. You asking me? You see any evidence of that?
No, but you said he lied.
No, but what I'm saying to you is that's not the reason why he implemented the thing. He came and polished it by saying it is for those purposes. Okay? But that's not the reason why he did it. He had to do it because of the loan. He could have said it was for football. He could have said it was for cricket. He could have said anything he wanted to. The point is he had to do it. And so that was a lie. He further lied to us by telling us it would be only in place for 2 years. Okay, it has been 2 years. 2 years have passed, and it's still on our backs. And do you have a difficulty accepting that Philip is a liar? You still
No, I have a difficulty understanding how he lied about that particular thing, because if
He did not tell us it was a requirement of the
because
loan.
if he's okay, so if the 2.5% levy is not being used for health and security, then I would understand him lying.
Do you know that it is being used for health and security, Andre?
Well, I mean, don't we have things happening within the police force, the hospitals, those things? I mean, I'm not
Okay,
I'm not the PRO for the Labour Party. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to understand the logic behind the lying.
But let me just ask you: during the reign of the United Workers' Party, wasn't there things being bought for the police and so on? There was no 2.5% levy. As a matter of fact, there's a reduction in VAT of 2.5%. So I mean, the question is, did the budget reflect an increase because of that levy?
An increase in
the allocation for health and security.
Mm-hmm.
Did we see an improvement in health and security? We didn't. So it was a lie, a bold-faced lie. They misrepresented the reason why that levy was imposed. The levy was imposed because it was a stipulation, a condition, and World Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, those people, IMF, those people have conditions. Even some of those other regional banks like the Exim Bank of Taiwan and those banks, they have the stipulations if they're giving you a loan. Sometimes, for example, the Taiwanese gave us a loan and they said that it was very concessionary, but it would have to be a Taiwanese company that would have to be the contractor. There are conditions. You understand what I'm saying? The Chinese do it, African banks do it and so on. Their condition was that you have to impose, because they want to ensure that their money is repaid, So when they look at your fiscal situation and so on, they might say, look, to make sure we get our money, you'll have to impose a loan which will generate so much. So on. And that is to secure their loan.
So you're saying that you believe that the 2.5% levy was there to repay the loan. That's what you're saying, not to take care of
I do not know if they use
health
it. I
and
do not
security.
know if they're using it to repay the loan, but they had to put it in place to get the loan.
But I'm just saying,
they can use CIP money to pay the loan, to repay the loan. Once the people get their money, they don't care. But before, they want to ensure that there are measures in place that the government will have sufficient money, will be in a position to repay them. That's what it is. I mean, so Philip Pierre recognizing, making an admission, at least he admitted something, that health was atrocious, national security was out of control. So he figured if he told us he's for that, we would accept it, and that's what he did. That's what he did. And so, Andre, we capped fuel at 13.5%, even when the price of oil was high on the world market. The St. Lucia Labour Party at one time had fuel at $17.95, by far the highest anywhere in the region. But they capped it eventually when we criticized them sufficiently at $16 per gallon, even when fuel was less than $60 US a barrel on the international market. Even when it was less than $60, we were paying $16 a barrel. Okay? And I said to you, even when it was over $100, we were paying $13.95. So, thank God, a new government will come into office, and within 30 days, those two will be gone. It will be capped at a lower rate, maybe $13.95 or $14, the fuel, especially if the gas price, oil price remain as low as it is, and the levy will be gone. Okay? When it comes to job creation, when the United Workers' Party was there...
So if the levy is gone, what happens to that loan then?
I can pay the loan without the levy. I mean, there are many things. Now, you see people talking about, well, we'll get the money to this, well, we'll get the money to that. First of all, when you grow the economy, you have a lot more commerce taking place, you make a lot more money as government. Government has a lot more revenue coming in. We are good at jump-starting the economy and getting the economy going. The Labour Party is not, because they take money out of the economy, and government is not the best repository of the finances in a country. The people handle their money better. When there's more commerce, when there's more money in the hands of the people, there's more commerce taking place, and the economy does better. So that will be one fundamental difference. And along the way, Andre, the billions that are unaccounted for, we will go after it. We will go after it. Because we're not just saying that. We want to know, for all those thousands of passports that were approved and sold, what has become of that money. Now, when we go after it, some people will go too. Tough. You know? So, and so we during our tenure, we created over 1,000 jobs.
Now, you know, Mr. Montot, sorry, I think that's a good time to explain to the people of St. Lucia who are going to be voting, if the economy is doing so, as well as you say, right? I'm just basing what you said a while ago there. And I remember the former Prime Minister saying, at least on 2 occasions, that the country is broke. So I think that's a good time to explain what was going on at that time that would cause us to be broke.
Okay, one of the things we all forget is that the United Workers' Party, okay, presided over a period where almost 2 years of their tenure was punctuated by something out of the blue that no one had heard of before, called COVID-19. Mm-hmm. That decimated our economy. That notwithstanding, we were able to, and forced to, on occasions, pay civil servants their salary every month. Even though we had negotiated with the banks to put a moratorium on their loans and everything that, when we asked for a break, to give us some fiscal space for a break, you know, by the public servants, they flatly refused. The unions came out, guns blazing, and flatly refused. The Labour Party supported them and all of that. We paid them their salaries. Okay? We were able to keep the country running, and we were able to reopen the economy. Among the first in the world to reopen our economy and to get things going again so that the people who we kept alive could have a livelihood. Okay? That is what we talk about, governance and management of a country. Okay?
So you're saying COVID was responsible for the country being broke at that time, right?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, all we had was tourism. All we have up to now, well, when I say all we have, that's an exaggeration, but what we depend on most is tourism. Tourism was wiped out by COVID. So, you know, but we created jobs, Andre, 1,000 jobs in the hospitality industry, and its hospitality and accommodation sector, and we created 2,760 jobs in the AI and BPO subsectors. You know, those, how do you call them? Calling
centers?
Call centers, yeah. Now, that's real jobs. They are telling you how many jobs, how much unemployment went down by, but they can tell you how many jobs they created, and they can show you the jobs that they created, and they can tell you where they created those jobs. Okay? Well, we know STEP, but is that what you're talking about? You know, in the construction sector, there are some jobs, but let's not forget that everything is so highly mechanized now. When you're building, having a building going up, there's not as many people as you used to have before on site. So we're talking about what? 3,000, over 3,000, almost 4,000 jobs created during our time. We cannot tell you how many they created. Roads and bridges, we rehabilitated 50 kilometers of secondary roads. We rehabilitated 38 kilometers of agriculture feeder roads. That is around the island. We commenced major works on the Castries-Grosley Highway, which was terminated by this government and costing us millions of dollars to compensate the contractor. You know, it's going to cost us, we're going to pay twice the amount with the project unfinished. Okay? And we commenced Cul-de-sac Bridge, Millennium Highway, and West Coast Road. They finished the Millennium Highway already, Andrew?
For the most part, yes.
Up to now. Okay, we commenced that project. And they constructed we constructed new bridges in Canaries and Tamazo. Okay, when it comes to water supply, very important, we upgraded the water systems in Vieux-Fort, Dennery, that's Dennery North, Bouton, that's in Soufrière, Canaries, Tirocher, Saltebus, Font-Campêche, Vieux-Fort, Vieux-Siqui, that's in Grosley. Can you imagine there's a part of Grosley where we have pipe-borne water, Andrew? That's in Vieux-Siqui. We brought that, you know, Belfond, that's Soufrière, and Boisden. I think Baden must be ancillary canneries somewhere. Odlum City and Agard. We increased the water supply capacity at Hill 20, and we commenced the desilting works at the John Compton the dam in Roseau. Education. I just want to go through some of the things that we did during our tenure. When it comes to education, we renovated 74 school facilities and spent $45 million on repairs of schools. This administration spent 22 million, less than half. Okay, less than 22. Like 22 million was invested in repairing school facilities and school plants, and we do have a number of the schools, but of course substantially less in terms of the investment that was made. Health, oh my God. We commissioned the OKEU Hospital and converted Victoria Hospital into a respiratory clinic. We refurbished and upgraded 14 wellness centers, and I can tell you the Moshi Wellness Center was one of them. We constructed 2 new wellness centers in Miku and Ancillary. We increased the budget for medical assistance, and I want to stress on that. We increased the budget for medical assistance for the public, not for ministers, for the public, from $700,000, listen to me, from $700,000 to $4 million. Andre, all of that, when they tell you about we got rid of the distress fund and everything like that, we didn't have anything called a distress fund. But if you're in distress and you have to go to Martinique, okay, you come to the government from the Ministry of Health, who had an allocation of $4 million to assist the public, you would get that. Before, they only had 700,000. How far can that go? One operation can take over 100,000.
So where did the Labour Party get the idea that you stopped the distress fund? Because up to now, they keep saying spokespeople
They keep saying it, but let's understand this, Andre. There was something called a distress fund. They put $700,000 in it for fire victims, for people who are looking for medical assistance and all of that. We did not, because it's just that is a heading in the budget, and they put an allocation there. We did not have that heading, but there was an allocation for health. And in the Prime Minister's office, and that was in the Ministry of Health, and in the Prime Minister's office, there was another allocation where people who suffer fire damage and things so will get assistance. And in fact, in both cases, it was more than had been allocated before. So is it the name distress fund that is important, or getting assistance when you're in distress that is important?
So you said something didn't appear in the budget as distress fund, is what you're saying?
We didn't have the heading distress fund. But when you came to the government, in your distress, you got assistance.
Well, Mr. Mantut, maybe the Public Relations Department of the didn't do a good job in informing St. Lucians.
No, let me just say something to you. I'm sitting here now and I'm saying it. Tomorrow they will come and repeat it. And you will not debunk it and tell them no. While there was not a distress fund, there was assistance for the people. That's what you have to do for them to stop what they're doing. Okay, because it's not like we have not been saying
No, I wasn't even aware of that, because what I'm hearing is that the distress fund was stopped. That's what's been repeatedly said. Okay, so now you're saying there was some kind of fund or something which, and there's a greater allocation.
Albeit it was not under a heading called distress fund. One was on the Ministry of Health, one was in the Prime Minister's office.
So I'm just saying that at the time, a good enough job was not done to inform the public that this was still available.
Okay. Well, we're doing our best now. When it comes to health, on the other side, they refurbished wellness centers in Miku South and Vieux South, and they completed the construction of the wellness center in
Sorry to disturb you. I'm sorry to do that.
Yes.
So you said it moved from 700 to $4 million.
That is just for health, for assistance to the public, for medical assistance to the public. Okay? I'll have to find out from the Prime Minister. I can't remember offhand now how much was allocated to his ministry, because there was a head. I don't know what miscellaneous heading it was, that they provided assistance for people who suffered loss in fires and so on. As a matter of fact, we spent a lot more, millions more than they did in assisting people.
Now, Mr. Mantut, I like when you say things like, people should speak out and so on. So when these things are being said on certain programs, certain talk shows, why don't your people call in and give these facts?
Well, let me tell you something, and it's embarrassing for me to say.
And that includes you too, huh?
Yeah, that's why I said it's embarrassing for me to say it. Because in the past, we had that foolish notion that, boy, we know we did our work will speak for itself. So I went to the Ministry of Health and I got $1,000. You know that? I'm not saying they should go and say they gave Spider, but they should say that we have given out $100,000 to assist people, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we just assumed, well, we are doing it and that kind of thing, which was foolish, which we paid the price for. And that is why, Andre, as long as I'm around, that will not happen again. Okay? So if you say, Spider has a small nose, I'll come and say, that's not true. You understand what I'm saying, Andre? I mean, some things we just take for granted, we ignore. And it goes down as gospel, and people have a right, because if you're not refuting it,
exactly.
What do you expect them to think?
Mm-hmm. And
the Labour Party is very strategic. Even if they know it is a lie, they repeat it often enough until people believe it. And so we have caught on, Andre, and we will ensure that we debunk going forward. Tourism. Now, there's a lot of talk about how great the Labour Party has done with the tourism industry. If you hear Ernest Healy, boy, you would think, well, boy, Barbados have to make way for us. When it comes to tourism, there were 700 new rooms added to our room stock during our tenure. We increased airlift capacity, connectivity through new additional flights with Delta, JetBlue, American Airlines, TUI, and Sunwing. We increased stay-over arrivals by 23% to 423,700, and we increased cruise ships arrival by 16% to 786,700. Overall tourism arrivals increased by almost 20%. Now, that was during our term. And remember, you have to take into account that there was something called COVID during our term. When it comes to the St. Lucia Labour Party, who didn't have not even COVID-1 to deal with, we had COVID-19 to deal with. Airlift capacity declined through loss of flights. We lost flights from American Airlines out of Chicago, New York, and Dallas. JetBlue out of New Jersey, we lost that flight. Virgin Atlantic, we lost 3 flights per week out of the UK. And Sunwing out of Canada. We lost all of those flights. Okay, so stay-over arrivals, they have just a little increase, 435,000, we had 423,000. And, you're supposed to build, by the way. And when the UWB comes in, they can't come and show me that they have 435,000. They have to build on that. Cruise ship arrivals, 723. UWB had 786. There was 92% of the 2019 levels. It was 92% of the 2019 levels. And tourist arrivals stood at 1.2 million. But it is still 5.5% below what it was in 2019. We do not count 2020 and 2021 because no tourism in 2020 and 2021. Those were anomalies. All right, those years we had our problems with the COVID-19 situation and so on. Now I want to go through. I want to go through some other information I have here, in terms of making a comparison, or at least talking about the accomplishments of the United Workers' Party during the tenure in office. But I am trying to see if I can get my phone to cooperate with me. Just zoom out on me, then I can get it. Yeah. So, Andre, when you hear the Labour Party speaking, a lot of it is fabricated, a lot of it is lies. They are very dishonest, those people, and St. Lucians have realized that by now. And so we cannot trust them, we cannot take their word. Agriculture, we establish agro-processing facilities in Fonsault, Lacaille, and Angers. When you talk about value added, when you say processing, you can take fruits and have dried fruits and package them and sell them, which is adding value to the product. We expanded acreage on the banana cultivation from 1,017 acres to 2,459 acres. We established the 7-crop program designed to support farmers in increasing production of sweet peppers, watermelon, cantaloupe, pineapple, tomatoes, cabbage, and lettuce. And the idea was to provide assistance to those farmers to concentrate on those 7 crops so that they would not only we locally could be self-sufficient, but they can produce sufficiently to get to the hotels and so on, because the hotels are already market for those commodities, and these are all crops that can easily be grown here in St. Lucia year-round. House and land development. We made available over 1,000 fully serviced lots for purchase on previously underdeveloped lands or through regularization of unplanned developments. We provided over 900 subdivided residential lots in Riverdore, Talvan, Shock Gardens, Beauchamp, Bois-Joli, Bel-Air, Odsa, Volet, Deriso, and Olean. On the other hand, I guess Richard Frederick will show you 3 shacks that they built in plywood in Dennery, and the Prime Minister will tell you, these are not for people. That's for the poorest of the poor. Okay? That's the legacy in housing.
Somebody just messaged and says that the United Workers' Party has been helping people all the time. As Spider says, they just don't show off. Ask him about NSDF. Would you want to comment on that? Do you understand what the person is asking?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have that wasn't under my portfolio. I don't have all the details about NSDF. Or is he talking about SSDF?
Oh, could be. Could be, yeah.
And so,
maybe a typo.
Through the SSDF, we provided a lot of assistance, housing, educational, and just support, financial support to people, and training as well. All of that was done. And throughout the island, because I remember we had allocations to every constituency, despite what the Labour Party has been saying, that they were given no assistance, no allocations to the opposition MPs. That is not true.
Say that again.
Okay.
Say that again.
I'm saying, I can say without any fear of contradiction, and the SSDF exists with different management now, but the records are there. When we gave allocations for educational assistance, for what we call stimulus. Stimulus is our equivalent of STEP. Okay? Political parties already, we ain't going to call it STEP. You have to give it another name.
A nice name, stimulus package.
But the same thing. So we provided housing assistance, training, and so on. We provided it across the board. I, for one, never got involved in determining who received what assistance. The executive director can say to you that he dealt directly with opposition MPs like Sean Edwards, like Dr. Anthony, Philip Pierre, Alva Baptiste, all of them dealt with them directly.
So they're receiving allocations for their constituency, what you're saying?
From the SSDF, for sure. Yeah. And so,
but up to now, again, the spokespeople are saying that the MPs got nothing.
Well, I've heard Sean Edwards say not even a bag of cement
that
he received, and that is a lie. I am calling him out now and saying that is a lie. Okay, I have evidence. There is evidence to show that he received for sure from the SSDF. Okay, I was not managing the Taiwanese funds. That was not under my portfolio. But I know allocations were being made, and cabinet when took the decisions, at least allocations were being made for opposition constituencies as well. But I know they received from the SSDF.
So when Mr. Edward, you said you heard him make that comment.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because if it were me, I would pick up the phone and call Mr. Edward and say, because I'm sure you guys are buddies. I'm sure you're civil with each other, and say to him, but my friend, how could you say something like that when blah 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 blah? These are the facts.
Well,
why don't you do those things?
It's not as if they don't know what they're doing. He knows he's lying.
I don't say no.
So
but I'm saying here's an opportunity to call him out.
You think that'll make a difference?
I think so. Because again, when these things are happening, the ordinary Joe Blow knows nothing about those things.
Yeah, well, you're right. I guess I'll call him. I don't think it'll make a difference. He'll do it the next day anyway. Because I have refuted some things that people say. I mean, Richard Frederick, I went on Yardi's show one time to refute a statement made by Richard Frederick that we gave the Queen's chain to Cabot. Okay? And I came with the cabinet document and everything that indicated what exactly was leased to Cabot. I heard him repeat it again after that. Although he called the very program I was on.
Saying that, what did he say?
Oh, he said, well, his information shows otherwise, and getting that. So I was saying to him, well, the official document is what I have, and it is not so. But I mean, if a liar wants to lie,
Wow.
He will tell you it's snowing in St. Lucia, Andre. So, sports infrastructure. We install lighting systems in Lafargue, Canneries, Grace, La Clairie, Font-Assor, Dennery, and Jacmel. Now, let me just say this. Another thing we don't do, we don't beat our chest, we don't take credit for what we do. The administration that began the lighting of community playing fields. Now, I said community playing fields because there was Mindu Philip Park with lights, there's a stadium with lights, those are national facilities. But lighting of community facilities started with the United Workers' Party. That's a policy we adopted when I was sports minister, because we recognize people work, people go to school. Most people take part in sports, either work or go to school. By the time you come from work or school, you only have about 2 hours of sunlight, because by 6 o'clock, depending on the time of year, by 6 o'clock, it will be dark. So, to extend the hours of use of the facilities, we had to light them. And that's what we did, you know. And so, those playing fields were lit. But before that, Grosile and a few others, Balata, and there's an area in Babono, you know, that were lit. Okay, we supported 75 athletes based overseas under the Elite Athlete Program. 75 athletes who were based overseas, we supported them. Never mind all the foolishness that we withdrew support from our sprint queen, Julian Alfred.
That's another one again.
That's another lie. Okay. We, as a matter of fact, the truth is, for a brief moment while they were reviewing the program, the ministry asked the Olympic Committee to take the slack. And as soon as the program was regularized, we resumed with an increase in the amount.
So it was stopped for a while then?
No, it wasn't stopped. It was continued by the Olympic Committee, because we were reviewing the monies of the national lottery and so on that was supposed to be used for that. There was all kind of things going on about it, irregularities and so on. So it had to be regularized.
Because that's another thing that the spokespeople for the Labour Party have been saying.
Yeah,
that the assistance to Julian Alfred was stopped.
As a matter of fact, we all are embarrassed to come and say what we did for Alfred, because we should not, and she deserved and earned every bit of what we did. But the amount, some ridiculous amount, like $150 or some foolishness like that they were given, we increased it significantly. Okay? We increased it significantly. And even when she was going through problems during COVID and so on, that when it was the Prime Minister at the time who used his contacts and did what he had to do, and he does not want to speak about it, so I will not speak about it. But she has gotten support from our administration, as she should. Okay. We increased the coaching capacity at the school and community level through the engagement of 30 additional coaches. Right? I cannot give you an account for the St. Lucia Labour Party. They took $80 million, they say, to upgrade facilities during World Cup. Nobody, including the sports minister, cannot tell you where that $80 million went, how much of it was spent where, who were the contractors, nothing like that. And even though his cousin was a contractor, he does not know the contractor. Okay, so I can speak on that. If he doesn't know, I do not know. And the community infrastructure, we constructed HRGCs, Human Resource Development Centers, in Odsa, Bexon, Blanchard, and Roblo. And some of these, like Bexon and Roblo, I know for sure, remain shut just because it was constructed by, recently in the campaign there, I saw Bradley standing outside one of them and saying, please open the thing for the people need it, places just staying there being run down and not being used and so on. That is the Labour Party for you. That's what they did. So, and of course, we completed the HRDC in Grosile and PI. Now, let me just say something about the HRDC. While the police station is being built in Grosile, that's where the police station is housed now. Okay, but in that HRDC, we have a theater. We had, I don't know if it's still there. We had a computer lab for computer training. So whatever training you had there, there was 20-something computers in the room, so you could have had, sessions there, you could have lessons, classes, whatever. All right? We also had a music lab where recordings could be done, where we were going to ensure that we teach people the different facets of music in terms of engineering and all of that. that remains closed. Okay? That remains closed. We are actually well on our way in establishing it, and to open it, it remains closed. Now, that is the thing, people, and a young man who is the Minister of Youth Development and Sports is representing Grosley. Now, because to be honest, the dream was at the time, Andre, that, see how great Denry segment has done. I don't know what they would call it, but probably would have our Grosley segment too, But AWP will return, don't worry. Social Protection Services. We increased the number of recipients of public assistance by 1,000 households. Okay? So if 1,000 something households were getting assistance, we increased it by 1,000 households. So we provided a subvention to the Viewfort Children's Home, which caters for needs of vulnerable children in the south of the island. We strengthened the capacities of the Departments of Human Services, Probation Services, Family Court, and the police to administer support to children and their families. They didn't even put there. That's the thing about UWP, They didn't even put there. We started the after-school program in our term of 2006-2011, and it was expanded in the last term, 2016-2021. And they didn't even put that there. But that's significant because I have always been saying what happens to the children, Andre, between the time they come from school and the time you come from work. Okay? They are productively, gainfully, engaged during that time because of that program. And so the national security, I have to touch on national security. We secured insurance coverage for the police officers in the event of death or loss of limb. And as you know, now, Andre, they have insurance. If the police die during the course of duty, his family gets $300,000. I keep saying he gets. His family gets $300,000. And if he dies a natural death, they get $100,000. If he has a loss of limb, he's compensated. If he has to go to the doctor, that kind of thing. We installed 1,200 CCTV cameras at strategic locations island-wide. And the idea was to serve as a deterrent and as a method of solving crime. Because when I say a method of solving crime, Andre, I know of an accident that took place, and the fellows, they're arguing and want to go to court. The police came, showed them the footage. The fellow was wrong, just admit he was wrong. And that was the end of the thing. I'll fix your vehicle, and that's it. More than that, you know how many people have been killed on the streets of St. Lucia? We see bodies on the road, bodies in the drain, and so on. If that CCTV camera program had been continued, a lot of those crimes would have been resolved. When I say resolved, like the perpetrators, would be caught and all of that. You'd be able to track them down because depending on, you see what vehicle they're driving, what direction they went to, and all of that.
So you're saying that was stopped?
It was stopped, yeah. Yeah.
Officially?
By the government. They did not continue the program. Okay? They did not continue.
So when you say it didn't continue the program, because if the cameras are there, or is it that they weren't there? They
are there.
Right. So how could it be
1,200, and that's not taking you very far. I mean, we had to do it island-wide.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Yeah. So it wasn't continued.
Yeah. And so we reopened and outfitted the forensic lab to expand the range of services to include DNA and ballistic testing. That again goes a long way in solving crime. Okay? Not to mention, they didn't put that there, but I'm going to put it, and that's UWP, they already shortchanged themselves. They started the Border Control Agency, okay, to be able to fight all the illegal contraband and so on that comes into this country. They stopped, that program was on the way, they stopped it. We also instituted what we call the K9 units, the dogs that were able to sniff out guns, they were able to sniff out drugs, they were able to sniff out money, large sums of money. That, the story, apart from disbanding it when they just came.
Oh, let me ask you a quick question, since you mentioned that. If the United Workers' Party wins the elections on Monday, will when you form the government, will you pursue this Tyson matter?
Yes, we have to. Because you see, the thing about it is, Andre, we cannot allow these things to happen and nobody answers. You understand? When these things happen and nobody answers, it becomes a trend, it becomes a pattern, it becomes acceptable, and so on. Not only will we reinstate K9 units with an S, because not only are the air and seaport, but we want to know that the police patrolling will have, because when they stop your car, Andre, if you have your drugs in your muffler and so on, the dogs will get it. I will not get it, but the dogs will get it. We're going to beef up, because with the amount of guns, I mean, like we say, we don't manufacture guns here, but we have guns all over the place. One of the easiest things to find now is a gun. Every little boy on the street has a gun. If we can control that, we will be on our way in reducing the murders that are taking place in this country. And so I think that these are things that the United Workers' Party should talk about. The accomplishments of the past and what they will be doing going forward. These will go a long way in alleviating the problems. And, so not to mention, we started the NHI. A lot of work had been put into it, so much so that I was not directly involved. I knew about how much premiums would be and all of that. These things were being discussed in cabinet. And so that was put to a halt. We are going to resume the pursuit of establishing national health insurance for St. Lucians. And although we have explained that the premium will not be so exorbitant and that we need $13.5 billion to pay $75,000 to every St. Lucian, that's not how insurance works. Moses Jean-Baptiste knows that. Richard Frederick knows that, but they continue to repeat that, where are we going to get $13 billion? Or you don't need $13 billion. And if they do not know, and they're so ignorant, they should not be representing people. Because if you do not know, the debate is taking place, you want to be part of the debate, educate yourself. That is not how insurance policies work. We are going to pay about 1,000, I do not know what the revised figure is, but at the time that was being discussed, and mind you, before COVID, so it probably will be higher now. About $1,200, which works out to be $100 a month. But you have over 100,000 people, Andre, contributing. Not even during COVID, Andre, would you have a run of 100,000 people on that insurance. You heard the figures we're talking about? Even under labor, it was less than 25,000 people. Even under labor, it was less than 25,000 people. So when you come and talk about that, you need $75,000 for 180,000 people. Nonsense.
But I think where we need further clarification, Mr. Mantut, is where it concerns elderly folk.
Okay.
This is where we have the problem.
Right. When it comes sorry
to disturb you. Because if I were to, well, not even me really, maybe I stand a chance. But anybody maybe 70s, 80s going to go to an insurance company right now and say, I want to have life insurance, or health insurance, sorry. They'll tell you move from there.
Right.
How are you going to get around that?
Okay, because
you said for everybody.
You're talking about an insurance with a portfolio of maybe 10,000 people. You're going to add 1,000 elderly people to that.
Say again.
Let's say you have a portfolio of 10,000 people. You add 1,000 elderly people. You have about 1,000 elderly people in that there. You're ruined. Because these people are going to claim every day and so on.
Right.
Do you collect enough money to be able to cover that? But in the 180,000 people we're talking about, Andre, okay? In terms of 70-year-olds, if you have 10,000, you have a lot. If you have 10,000, you have a lot. Because I worked it out when they said they're giving assistance to 80-year-olds. Okay? That was just about 2,000 something people. So, I'm saying, you have to look at what you're working with. The pool you're working with will cover it. Because you, Andre, and the young boys and young ladies and so on, who will not claim anything substantial, will more than adequately cover for that. So it can work.
And you already convinced an insurance company?
Well, we're working with an insurance company. Don't think the insurance company, they have actuaries who work out those things. They have their methods, their formulas that they work out risk level and all that kind of thing. They know that when they do risk pooling, they know how much money is going to be in the pool and how much it is expected that they will, and that's what they peg the premiums on. You understand what I'm saying? So your premium, Andre, and my premium would be high. Yours would be high. The older people would be higher if at all they get it. You understand? Because some people cannot get insurance, because you hear me ask you, do you have any pre-existing condition? You have all these kind of things. For them to tell you, sometimes, my mother had high blood pressure, diabetes. She suffered a stroke. She had cancer.
Right.
Which insurance is going to take that country? Which insurance will accept her?
Exactly. So when we say...
But she
every
will
St.
fall
Lucian,
in that
she
pool.
falls into the...
She will fall in that pool there of thousands, over 100,000 healthy people who are paying $100 a month. There'll be enough money to cover 100. Because they will work out the risk factor, and that is why they can tell you it only costs $100. Andre, if you and your family try to take a similar package, $75,000 coverage, it will cost you all far more. It will cost you far more. But that's a group insurance, you know. That is why people take group insurances, and it will work out to be cheaper than their family insurance, you know. So don't worry, Andre. You'll be covered. We have your back. You know? We have your back. And every St. Lucian, and when I say every St. Lucian, there are St. Lucians who do not work, government will pay for them. There are St. Lucians who are disabled and cannot earn. Those disabled people who cannot earn, government will have their coverage paid, their premiums paid. There are elderly people who cannot work, government will have them covered. So, you know, those of us who can work will make a contribution. Andre will make a lot of contributions because he'll pay his own, plus he'll contribute part of his staff insurance. I don't know. So, but, you know, it is workable, very workable, quite feasible. It exists. It's not rocket science, but you know, the deceit of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I mean, this is something good for St. Lucians. Accept and say that is good. You know what I admire about the United Workers' Party? They didn't come and say, youth economy is impossible. They said, we will continue the youth economy because in principle it is a good program. However, based on our assessment, we do not believe that a grant of $5,000 is sufficient to give a startup business a fighting chance to succeed, so we're going to increase the grant to $25,000. That is what a responsible government does. So come and tell me, we're giving you $100,000, Labour Party going to give you $100,000 instead because we're going to do X, Y, Z and so on. But because you don't have any ideas and you can't come up with anything better, do not say it is not good. I mean, the fact that you couldn't think of it doesn't mean it's not good. Okay? Because you see, when they do that, Andre, they're not putting themselves at risk. They're going to do that to win an election. Once they win an election, they fall sick. The president come in the cabinet and take them, you know, to bring them to Martinique and to Miami and all that kind of thing. So, as was the case with Virginia Poyet, as was the case with Joachim Henry, and I'm not suggesting to you that someone who is providing service to the state is not entitled to that kind of privilege. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm saying that sometimes is responsible for why they do not care about you and I, who are not privileged to have that at our disposal.
And that's your final question before you leave. Remember Mr. Jeremiah Norbert? He has a letter from the then government saying that they will be underwriting the costs of his medical expenses. And he said that never happened. He said it was out of pocket.
But I explained that.
Hold on. Out of pocket. So what I'm asking, if you form the next government, like I say, when you form the next government, will the government address this issue? Because it's about integrity. If the gentleman has a letter stating, right, at that time, that it would be paid for, and he ended up paying for it, would you, the government, address this issue once and for all and reimburse the gentleman for what he has?
Let me explain the situation to you. There's
for what he had
need
to
for
pay.
reimbursement. Okay.
Why not?
What happened was they would not just accept you if they did not know. First, they didn't have guarantee of payment. The government provided that letter,
Right.
that cover letter,
Guaranteeing the payment.
the payment. So, in other words, if he did not pay, the government would pay.
No, Mr.
That's what it was.
No,
That's what it was, Andre.
Mr. Montour.
Okay, let me explain.
You insulting my intelligence.
I'm insulting
now.
your intelligence.
Yes.
So you just like Lisa.
So
Giroir. Hold on. You just like Lisa Giroir, who somebody came and said to the bank that I am going to guarantee that loan. So if she does not pay, I will pay. So she does not have a responsibility to pay.
Oh, she does. She does, because if you already sign on the dotted line saying that you're going to do such and such a thing,
she does.
You ought to do it.
Well, if he could not pay, the government would have paid.
So I'm just saying, no, Mr. Montour, that cannot be right.
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
That cannot be right.
Andre,
it's like me telling you, if you, I give you a letter saying, if you take this thing to such and such a person, I'm going to pay for it or whatever.
That is a provisional letter to ensure that he got medical care.
So that's like a bluff then.
No, it's not a bluff. He knew that The government promised that, and if it was needed, the government would have paid.
But you didn't say that, Mr. Matut. I have a copy of the letter.
So he's been in government for 4.5 years now. Why didn't pay him? Why didn't reimburse him?
Well, maybe he's just not pursuing it.
Andre.
But it's obviously the gentleman has been wronged in that regard. I'm just saying
He's
to
been
you,
wrong?
when you form the next government, to address this issue, because it makes the administration at that time look bad, really and truly.
Andre, my understanding is until the guy's insurance and all of that kicked in, okay, the government was saying, you need not worry, go ahead and treat this guy, you will be paid. That's all. It's a provisional form of coverage.
But representatives of the administration said that the government did pay it.
No, we didn't say that. We said we assisted him. And we did.
Assisted. I didn't have assisted at the time.
And we did. We made the arrangements for him. The airport was closed. We opened it for him to travel and all of that. We assisted. And you see, and why should that even be a discussion? Why should that be a subject?
No, I'm bringing it up.
Because he
didn't bring it up, Mr. Montour.
No. They brought it up and sought to say that we did not assist him, which is a lie.
Well, you consider the assistance to be facilitating the airport. That's how you see it.
Also, that's not assistance.
Well, of course it is some assistance, but that's not what the letter says. The letter speaks about costs and so on, underwriting that.
Well, when I say I, as I am today, we would have probably lost another leg in the process while we were waiting to look at. They will tell you the airport is closed. Okay? It's because of his, and these are the things that has to change too. It's because of his stature, his standing, who he was. He got there. Another fellow probably. Well, you can go to Martinique about what is closed, no travel, no nothing. So that's probably what they would just casually tell him and go and lose your leg, So at the end of the day, let's not be like that to score political points.
It's not him,
okay.
As I said.
He was part of it. He said he never received
And I'm
assistance.
saying, Mr. Mantut, whether it's the Lisa Chihuahua case where she's promised to do something, she ought to do it.
Deceivingly said.
You heard what I said?
Yeah.
If she promised to do something, it's on the dotted line.
She ought to do it. She promised to do it.
And I'm sure you'd hold her to that.
Yes.
Exactly. So you ought to hold yourself to that standard as well.
Okay. I'm saying to you, had the bills not been paid, we would have it, because that's the deal. We said to Martinique, go ahead. It's just like you, Andre. The fellows figure, I am not working. Castle and West Pine are going to be me. But I know where I get money from. But I can prove it to them. So you say, don't worry, know that the fellows will get it. You say, no, don't worry, don't worry, give him, I'll take care of it. And I came and I pay my bill. The matter is settled. Why does government have to pay when the guy insurance eventually kicked in from what he said?
Well, but the portion that he paid from his pocket, that's what I'm talking about.
He paid from his pocket?
Yes,
I don't know about that.
yes.
Well, let him apply for a reimbursement, Andre. If he had to apply for a reimbursement, we were not there,
No, I'm saying if you form the government, that's what I asked you. Would you now make good on that?
Well, if there is a portion that he has to be reimbursed, we'll have a problem reimbursing.
All right, okay, that's what I was.
Only thing I'm going to ask you is that why in 4.5 years he was not reimbursed? You're not asking yourself that question?
Maybe he didn't pursue it.
No, okay.
Yeah.
But he'll pursue it when we're there.
No. I'm not saying so. I'm asking you. Anyway.
Tell him don't worry. Tell him don't worry. He'll have $75,000 coverage. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, but we have to wrap up.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say this. Thursday. Today's Thursday. That's how many days before? 4 or 5 days before the next general election. Again, I am appealing to all St. Lucians to go out and exercise your franchise. Go out and vote, because that's a right, a privilege that you earned. But ensure that in the process, you make the right decision, because that decision will have implications for you for at least the next 5 years, and even much further down the road. It will have implications for you and the future of this country. Be sure that the things that you did not approve or appreciate in the last 4.5 years, that you contribute to making it right. You have an opportunity to right the wrongs that were perpetrated against you and our country by going out there and voting for a candidate and a party with a plan that will improve your well-being, that will improve your standard of living, that will improve the situation in this country for all St. Lucians, and that is the United Workers' Party. So my advice to you is to go out there on election day and vote in your constituency for the candidate of the United Workers' Party. It is late in the day, but it's still not too late to go and ensure that your name is on the list and find out where is the polling station you're going to vote, and to ensure that you go out and do so. I want to say to you, do not forget, because politicians dangle $500 or $1,000, $1,500, whatever, in your face today, do not forget the sufferings you went through in the last, and the deprivations you endured in the last 4.5 years, and what it will be for the next 5 years after you have allowed yourself to be bought by $500, $1,000 or $1,500. You, if it's offered to you, may wish to take it, but do not let it influence your decision. Make a decision based on what is best for you, not just for today, because $500 will be just for today, but think about your future. Vote for a sustained improvement in your condition, and that you will get from the plans of the United Workers' Party, our plans for security, our plans to reduce cost of living, our plans to improve your health care, and our plans to grow the economy of St. Lucia. So again, I thank you for listening, and will you join me? Andre, we have to renegotiate by next week because no meet the opposition anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be meet the minister.
Exactly. But
would you still like to meet on the Thursday or the Friday?
Well, I think we'll meet on the Thursday still. All right. Just as the name of the program will have to change.
Different. All right.
So I want to thank.
I'll hold you to that, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to thank all of you throughout. We started off with Nancy and then with me, who have been ardent, committed listeners to this program. You have made this program what it is. We ask you to stay tuned to the United Workers' Party. There are a few days left, and I know that tonight we have a meeting in Moshi, and there's also a meeting in Castries South, and on Saturday we have a massive rally in the constituency of Swazel in Lafargue, so you can come out there for the last lap to hear the last bit of the plans that we have in store for you. You can go online, those of you who have your devices on your computers and so on at home, go online to UWP-manifesto.com, www.uwpmanifesto.com, and you can peruse the manifesto yourself. And when you meet your candidate, if you have any salient pertinent questions, you may ask them so they can give you a little more enlightenment and explanation. And if you like what you see there, ensure that you give it effect, because the United Workers' Party is a party that delivers, and we have always risen to the challenge of repairing the damage done by the St. Lucia Labour Party once they're in government, bringing St. Lucia back on a course of development and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, and I want to wish you an extremely good weekend. Have a safe weekend and a safe and enjoyable election day. We all cannot have our wishes on election day, but let us do one thing: respect the democratic process, which says that it is the wish of the majority that will prevail. Let us all ensure that we don't do anything to find ourselves in trouble, and that we go out there, cast our vote in peace, and in terms of the rules, the laws governing elections. You are not supposed to imbibe, drink alcohol. You're not supposed to wear anything promoting a politician or anything like that. Let us please observe those things. Don't give the police unnecessary trouble and to put ourselves in trouble. Let's have a peaceful election. I thank you.
And let me just wish you the best of luck. You and your party, the best of luck on Monday. Now, I don't know whether you will be continuing this program in another form or in the same form, but I just want to thank you for two things. When we first came on, we had a lot of challenges in terms of market share and so on. Yeah. And when we approached your party accepted us with open arms. Mm-hmm. So it's been about 2 years now, because I think you came on not too long after we started. So I just want to thank your party, the United Workers' Party, for having the faith in us to come on board. Mm-hmm. And definitely it worked out for the best, because you brought in a lot of listeners and viewers to rev up. So I want to thank you for that. The other thing I want to thank you for, you especially, your maturity. because I play devil's advocate here all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think a lot of people don't understand what I'm doing.
Right.
But I'm glad that you understand.
Yeah.
And you don't get angry at me or anything like that. And you take it in good stride.
But you know, by doing that, you expose me, Andre. I should have thanked you for that. In thanking my listeners and so on, I should have thanked you for that, because I think you added a lot to the program. And I'm not a professional at this as yet, so maybe I didn't bring out some of the points like I should for the benefit of my listeners, and you almost forced me to by the questions that you asked. And like I always told you, I appreciate it, because I think it enhanced the program.
Yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so this has been Government in Waiting. Hosted by Mr. Leather Spiderwood Tooth. So do enjoy the rest of your day. We have Kina coming on next. We'll be with you until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
The winds of change are calling. Our people deserve more than struggle. We deserve a future built on dignity